Okay, so in this lesson of the tutorial, we're going to go ahead and paint our character model. And the first thing that we need to do is you need to go ahead and fill the model with a white color. And as you can see, I'm selecting the subtools and doing that. But for the eye here, we're going to go ahead and fill it with the toy plastic material. And this is going to allow us to have a sort of reflective surface. And as you can see there, we did fill it. So all you need to really do when you go to do that is make sure you select the material channel and have a white color selected to fill the texture, or sorry, fill the mesh. And now as you can see, I've imported a texture of an eye, and we're going to use Lightbox or Spotlight to go ahead and paint the eye texture. And I'm going to hit Z here to go ahead and scale up our model, and then I'll hit Z again to go ahead and re-show the spotlight so that we can place the texture properly. And I'm just adjusting the opacity there so I can see through the texture and make sure I'm going to place it properly. And it just takes a little bit of adjustment to get it right here. And I think we're good there. Turn the opacity up here. And it's very important that you have the RGB intensity set to 100 whenever you're painting the eye texture or painting through, your spotlight textures. And this is because if you have it turned down to, say how you would normally paint a character texture, you're not going to get all of the color information. And if we have it at 100%, this way we get all of the color information from the texture to go ahead and paint onto the model. And as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and paint the side of the eye here. It just takes a little bit of adjustment. And if you hit X and have the symmetry turned on, this way it'll paint the same texture on both sides of the model or the mesh. And as you can see, our eye texture looks pretty good there. But we need to go ahead and paint a pupil for our character's eye. And I'm just selecting a black color, and I'll scale up a little bit and go ahead and paint the black part of the eye, the pupil of the eye. And then I'll smooth it back here a little bit. I'll make sure I turn off Z add there so that we're not actually sculpting on the character. I did a little bit too much there. And it just takes a little bit of adjustment to get it proper and look correct. And there we go. We have our pupil texture painted, and our eye actually looks pretty good there. And so we can probably go ahead and start painting the body. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring in a color template that I made in Photoshop. Which is to just give our base coat of our character. And I'll just select color from the template and then turn the RGB intensity up to where I want it, and then just basically fill the character with it. As you can see there, he turns green. And then the key is, I'm probably going to go ahead and paint over this, or I'm going to go ahead and paint over this. But this is going to give us, a very quick base coat in terms of color. And right now I'm just trying to adjust to what I like. I'm going to go ahead and do a BPR render here by hitting Shift R on our keyboard. And it's all just to basically on personal feel on what he's supposed to look like, or what I think he looks like. And it's just it's all trying to make him look the best that you can. Just adjust and try something here, try something there. And I'm just trying a bunch of different colors here to see what I like. And I'm painting on the basic gray material, or on the toy plastic material, just to give a little bit of juiciness. And I'll go ahead and start painting the tentacles here with a lighter shade of green yellow. And when you paint, you want to really try to, outside of spotlight, you really want to try to keep a low RGB intensity. This way, if you do have to make changes to the paint, you can then, it's not going to take a lot of effort, excuse me, to go ahead and paint back over what you did was wrong. So it's much easier to have a low RGB intensity in case you do mess up and you have to paint back over it. As you can see here, I'm painting the bottom side of the tentacles, the purple color. Sometimes I'll use a different, custom material to go ahead and paint over, or custom matte cap to paint on, but for this character, since he's going to be a little bit reflective, I was just simply using the toy plastic color. In the next lesson, maybe I'll show you, a custom material that I'll go ahead and paint on, but for right now, we're just, using the toy plastic color, and that's just going to allow myself to see, a little bit of reflection in the model, sort of like he's wet. And this way it's sort of going to simulate the SSS material in Maya whenever I would go to fully render this character. And it's also important that you should understand that when you paint in ZBrush, 9 times out of 10 that your texture does get edited in Photoshop so that you can get your subdermal maps, your epidermal maps, your specular maps. I mean, you can paint them in ZBrush, but I tend to do a lot of that work inside of Photoshop. And those are simply, just saturational changes in terms of the texture map. Sometimes I'll paint a little bit extra in Photoshop, but for this character, since we aren't going to be doing Photoshop, I'm really not going to get too much into that. As you can see, I'm just, simply painting a little bit more in terms of our eye texture, or our eyelid texture here. I'm just trying to make it a little bit lighter than the body to add a little bit of variation. And I'm not sure if those are like moles or what, but I'll paint a little bit of yellowish green here too. I'm just basically going on feel in terms of, how I think he should look. In the next lesson, I'll be adding a little bit more in terms of paint detail, where we will sculpt while we paint, which is just add a little bit of more variation for the model. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead and paint the lips here, which should be a little bit lighter color, just to break up the variation of the character. But like I said, this is all with the intention of, eventually taking this character back to Maya, where I would retopologize the character mesh and then re-render the character. I'm going to go ahead and paint on the back here, and I'm not exactly sure what these things are actually supposed to be, but I hope you guys enjoy the way he looks and painting him. I will be including the project files with this tutorial, so that everybody can follow along. And you're free to use the character mesh in any way that you want. And now you can see I'm using the color spray, and that didn't really do what I wanted. And the yellow here is obviously going to be a little bit too bright for me. So I'll go ahead and sample color from the model, turn the intensity where I want it, and basically just color spray to mainly just break up and add a lot of variation to the character. Because he really shouldn't be, just one specific color. He should have a lot of funky variations to him. I'm not exactly sure if he's a squid, if he's an octopus, or sort of like Kang or Kodos from The Simpsons.